You're listening to Kicking It with the Koves. Do you have a problem with it?
No, Sensei!
I mean, no, Dad.
No, Dad.
Hey guys, Jesse Kove here. Welcome back to Kicking It with the Koves. I am Jesse Kove again. I'm sitting across from my dad, Martin Kove, and my twin sister, Rachel Kove. We want to thank everybody who's joining us. Also, thank you for your reviews, all your amazing 5-star reviews that you've been putting out there, and we so appreciate that. So definitely leave a review and continue to follow us. We've got a great guest today. We've got Tim Ward, the head coach of the Pepperdine women's soccer team. He's also an incredible father and a husband, and I'm sitting right next to him, and I am honored to be sitting next to you and you joining us today. Thank you so much, Tim.
Wow, what a pleasure. I'm loving the vibe in the room right now. I love the vibe. I see you guys looking at each other like only family does, and I'm thinking this is cool.
Oh, thank you.
I like that.
Yeah, it's such a neat experience to be able to do this as a family, and I know how much you value family.
I do.
I feel like I'm sitting across, to me, you're like a celebrity. Like, for me to be sitting across the head coach of the women's, like, I want to cry because that's how much soccer means to me. Sorry. But, like, I think I've had 2 conversations with you, and those conversations were just an hour long because of the what we were talking about, just your philosophy on coaching. I've never heard anyone describe it the way that you describe coaching. Can you just go into your philosophy of coaching?
Oh, wow, it's a broad and deep question.
Go.
Well, okay, so I've been at Pepperdine since 1994.
Yeah.
Right, I'm 105 years old, I always tell everybody.
I was going to say, like, 105, maybe 7, something like that.
The Malibu air and surfing keeps me youthful. But what's interesting and what Rachel and I sort of connected on is that the fact that I'm old enough to know how it used to be. It's one of the reasons I've really connected with the show and almost like your character, Johnny Lawrence, that whole thing, the old school. I call it old school. And then I've been doing it long enough now. The best school. Yeah, the best school. And then you have this new way of coaching, and you have to appeal to the people you're working with, whether those are students or coworkers or whatever. It's a different world. Same world, but it's different. And so when it comes to my philosophy, I'll try to give it quick. Young Tim. When I first got the job at Pepperdine as a head coach, I was 26 years old. 22 as an assistant. On 2 different occasions prior to becoming the head coach, I was an interim head coach running the program by myself as like a 23-year-old and a 25-year-old. And eventually, they said, well, we need to, with Title IX and federal law, we need to hire a woman and go that direction. I said, hey, no problem. And I didn't think I was going to be a soccer coach. I was a bio major. I went to Cal Lutheran University, and I thought, hey, it's time for me to grow up and get a real job. But when they went through the interview process, they said, hey, you should, you've been around, we like you, and maybe just for the experience, go through the head coaching application process. So I did. And that's where I said, well, if I get this job or if I get an opportunity, I need to have a woman on my staff. And that's where Christy Walker and I.
Wow.
So Christy Walker is one of my wife's best friends. She's a sweetheart, love her to death. She was in our wedding. So when I went and did the interview process, make a long story short, I got the job. I always joke. I said I was the cheapest man for the job. I'm pretty sure that was the case. But they gave a 26-year-old an opportunity to coach. Now, how that affected the way I actually treated my student athletes, and I think this is true even today for a lot of younger coaches. So you base your value on whether you win or lose. So people's identity in our American culture is based on winning, and I'll give you a perfect example. So say you're a basketball player, Martin, and you're with your dad and you're 9 years old and you're at McDonald's, and someone rolls into McDonald's and they say, hey, Martin, how did your basketball game go? There's 2 questions they always ask you. Okay, and this is not a Tim Ward original thought. This is from this gentleman named Brett Ledbetter, really great sports psychologist. But the moment he said it, the moment I agreed, he's like, the 2 questions that most people ask young athletes is, did you win? And how many points did you score? Something along those lines. Did you win? And hey, did you score a goal? Did you win? Or how many hits did you get? If you're whatever, right? So there is this very subliminal message being asked. It's innocent. It's a perfectly normal question. But ever since you're a little kid, you come to realize that people get really excited and really stoked for you when you start, win, score, whatever. And so now multiply. We call that the aggregation of marginal gains, year or day after day and year after year. You begin to believe the lie or the truth, however you perceive it, that your value is based on did you play, did you win, and how many did you score. So now I myself believe that. I believe that. So as a younger coach, I thought, all right, my job, the university hired me to win soccer games. And come hell or high water, I'm going to win soccer games. It doesn't really matter that those kids have each of their stories is very unique, and they're coming from a totally different cultural background. That doesn't matter. I just need to win because they just gave a 26-year-old a contract, and I better win. So you will go about your business with that worldview guiding your decisions. And so we were successful early on because I was driving a hard bargain. I was demanding, harsh, just the way I had been coached, right? That's how it was. Hey, you run until you puke. All right, we're going to run until somebody on the team pukes. That's just how it was. And we sort of, now you look back, you wear it as sort of a, it's a badge of honor. Yeah, remember those days when we wanted to puke or passed out or whatever.
Oh, God, hate that feeling. But
Right?
it's so good at
Right?
the same time, yep.
And so I guess, that's old Tim. So we had this time at Pepperdine where we had never been to the NCAA tournament until I got the head coaching job in 98. And then my first class of recruits got us there in 2001. And then in 2002, we went to not only did we go to the NCAA, we went to the Sweet 16, but we won our first ever conference championship against Santa Clara and Portland, who happened to play for the Division I national championship. So I look back at early Tim, and I thought I was good because I was winning. But something changed along the way. And we had these years of real success. But then we had a group of kids who I love. I love them to death, but they came to Pepperdine. It's a Christian school. It's a dry campus. And these kids were some of the best players in the country, but our culture became fractured. And there was a lot of drinking and partying going on. And what on paper appeared to be the most talented team I'd ever had, the performance of the team went south. It was like the first losing year I'd had after building what I was thinking I was building a dynasty. And it went south. And I remember at that moment, I really had to reflect on what I was doing and why I was doing what I was doing. And what also changed during that time is that my first daughter was born in 2001, and my son was born in 2004. And then I stepped back, and I realized for the first time that the kids I was coaching, they were someone's kids. I mean, I know it sounds so obvious.
They were soldiers before.
They were soldiers before. They were there. They were transactional. I'm sure you've heard this. They were transactional pieces. See, I gave them scholarship money. I played them, and they got me wins. Very transactional. But what changed is that it's a very common thing in coaching now. Is I went from a transactional coach to becoming a transformational coach. And the idea is now everything we do is to help that young man. I coached boys too in high school a long time ago, but now I coach women. And the idea is to use the sport as the vehicle to help them develop into the best version of themselves. Winning is second. We don't even talk about winning anymore. Old Tim talked about winning all the time. Newer Tim never talks about winning. We talk about the pursuit of excellence. We talk about a higher purpose. We talked about competitive greatness. I would say winning is obviously the point, but it's never been our purpose, or it is no longer our purpose.
The journey of winning.
Yeah, the journey. The journey is the destination, right?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like the old way of coaching is very similar to the old school mentality of John Kreese coaching. Do you see a similarity in that?
Oh yeah, that's why I love the show, because I love it. I there's parts of that I still feel are necessary. As we spoke, I feel like Daniel LaRusso's daughter, the character in the show, she wanted Johnny Lawrence style a little bit. She wanted to be treated as a badass, or she didn't want to be treated maybe as Miyagi. Love Miyagi style, by the way. Love it, but love Cobra Kai style.
Yeah.
And so you got to know how to push. Every kid is not the same. And so for some, they can take the John Kreese style. Some kids need Miyagi. It's like that's why the show is so magnetic, because it's really addressing how different kids. I think we were talking about it was at Hawk early on. He was struggling. He's sort of a nerd, and he's not really liked socially. And then all of a sudden, he's using sport to elevate his social status and to be viewed a certain way. And he's willing to maybe sacrifice some principles to get that.
Which is totally truthful.
Yeah, that's what happens all the time in society. I mean, you see kids and people doing that especially young individuals, especially with, I'm holding up my phone, but especially in order to get likes or liked, right? And to get immediate gratification and to be in the in crowd. And so, but what I love about the show in the last season, at least, is that he sort of came back to his roots, and he came to grips with who he was. He can be both badass, and he can also be back to, the guy he was again. I don't know. If that's making sense.
Being John My dad's character?
Well, I think every character is going through that transformational process
right.
on the show, right?
Yeah.
But in Hawk's case, but every
Right.
single character seems to be going through a transformation on the show, and that's what's really cool. It's the battle of transactional versus transformational. And
That's one of the things I want to say that was so cool about when having you on is having, well, Dad, you obviously playing, essentially a coach on television, and then you obviously in real life, and so kind of seeing the realism of that, and maybe what you prefer. I wanted to know, like, oh, he prefers this style a little bit more than that style. Because I also believe there's so much reality in a lot of the things that are written in his style, especially in athleticism. Because like I don't consider I am very athletic. I did play sports growing up, baseball, soccer, basketball, all that stuff, and I feel like what motivates me and what helps keep me motivated is that kind of athletic mentality in life.
Yeah.
Like people like Tim Grover, who I've met many times, and I feel like when you adapt those kind of things, like you said, to instill in your students, kind of like some of the things that he's taken some of his, like, I think John Kreese's war experience and saying life is war, and I'm going to give you some of that and use it in martial arts to protect yourself. It all dances around each other in a really magnificent way.
It really does. It's really cool.
What do you think that the difference, the literal difference in the coaching styles of Billy, of Johnny Lawrence, and Ralph and Miyagi-Do? So, Miyagi-Do and, Eagle Fang versus what I do.
The damn Eagle Fang, the damn Miyagi-Do.
Eagle Fang.
I think
Eagle Fang.
Yeah,
God.
I think what's fascinating, what I think is fascinating when I watch the show, they're all okay. They're all okay. I think at the end of the day, as long as that student, right, knows that they're safe and they're loved, that's the culture we're living in right now. That as a parent, like, look, I have 3 kids. They are all so different. It's ridiculous. My daughter is a musician. My 21-year-old daughter, Abby, she's brilliant. But first soccer game she ever played, she's like, Dad, they keep touching me, So she didn't like physical contact. Meanwhile, my youngest daughter wants to go hit everything, right?
So you got your own Eagle Fang, Miyagi-Do,
Yes,
and Cobra
exactly.
Kai.
And then my son Nathan's in the middle brother, right? Birth order. And so Nate's a basketball player, and they're so, maybe it's a birth order thing, but he's so aware. That's why I was telling you, he met his first girlfriend, has his first girlfriend, and he loves the conversations they have. He loves it. It's brilliant.
That's so
Nate
great.
is great. So Nate and Lauren, they're funny. They're Pepperdine kids. So, but yeah, so every kid is different. And so you can't just say one style is right. I think different styles are different for different kids. But I think foundationally, you have to know who you're coaching. I think oftentimes in a pay-to-play culture, let's be honest, now we're going into pay-to-play. The model is you pay your money to your club coach or your AAU basketball coach or whatever, and that coach is supposed to deliver what? Wins. So my kid gets what? Recruited, and they get what? A scholarship. It's at least in this area. Mm-hmm. You got to start with the end in mind, because that's what most people are seeing.
And then is the goal to be, sorry to
no, that's okay.
Interrupt really quick, but I'm just curious, is the goal for every college player to then become professional?
No, and that's the thing. So whether you're a youth coach, whether you're a high school coach, or whether you're a club coach or a college coach, doesn't matter. I think you have to start with the ending. I literally think I'm using my hands right now, but expectations and reality. And you have to know what the expectation is and what reality is. And if there's a huge gap between expectations and reality, that gap, we call it frustration. So for instance, if I'm a high school coach, I might say, listen, of course it would be great to win a high school championship, but look, I'm going to get everybody on the field because this might be the majority of these kids, the only and last time they're going to play soccer. And if we have to sacrifice a result here or there, so un-American, right? If you have to sacrifice a win, I'm going to get these kids on the field. Meanwhile, college coach, oftentimes their job, their livelihood is based on the fact that they've got to win a game. So if you're not you say, hey, I'm developing my kids love me, and the AD I'm grateful. My AD is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, that they want to, of course, win, but there's an order to events. They want, at a Christian university, it's like, hey, we want the kids there and they graduate to know that Jesus is and that, hey, then graduate with your great academic degree, and then we compete for championships, but it's in that order. So the priorities need to be set on the front end. So if you don't win a championship, like he'll say, and I really appreciate this about my boss, Steve Potts, he'll say, look, if we win a championship and they don't achieve the other two, we failed them. If they don't graduate with their degree, and they don't know at least the love of Christ, we have failed them. And I'm like, okay. And so when you proceed to, whether it's the martial arts or any sport, when someone enters your world, it's really important to say, well, what are you expecting out of this experience? And then you say, well, no, that's not what this is set up to do. This might be, you might come and say, I just want to learn some martial arts. And I'm like, no, this is designed to take kids to the national championship level. Mm-hmm. But another teacher might say, oh, this is just for fun. This is cool, for an appreciation. And then so it's almost like the same as in soccer. It would be recreational, competitive, and then elite, right? So I think when you enter into whatever it is as a coach, your parents and the kids that you're working with, they, I think, need to understand. I think there needs to be a conversation about what are your expectations, and then a good coach will bring it back down to reality for them and say, okay, the next year is sort of going to look like this, not that.
That's such a great way also, like, for life. What are your expectations and what's the reality?
Right.
Everything.
Right.
Everything. Relationships, work, kids, all that. It's amazing to kind of see it the way you broke it down.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we enter into most dialogues, we bring our own worldview, our own assumptions into it, and we don't even catch it half the time. We're not even aware, right? So self-awareness is a huge thing.
It's huge, and my hope for the future is to bring self-awareness into school systems, into organizations, into not every dialogue, but to bring emotional well-being
Right.
into the professional world.
Right.
That it doesn't have to be a split compartmentalized experience. It can be, hey, I'm on a soccer team and today's a really hard day.
That's right.
And I was curious, when you said something along the lines of, I need to know my players. How do you get to know your players? Do you spend time after each practice? Do you spend time calling them? What is your approach with that?
Well, currently we have 22 girls on the team and 9 or 10 coming in next year, which is insane, right? You're going to have a squad of 30, 32, 31, however it lands ultimately. It's really difficult to get to know your kids. So you try to do, we're instituting maybe personality testing. You try to figure out buttons to push, not to push. That's new for us. That's a new way of trying to get to know how to communicate well with your student athlete. Obviously,
is that on paper they do that?
Yeah, there's different things we're looking into, DISC assessments and stuff like this. They're pretty standardized out there. But along the way, I mean, look, a part of it is an overall assessment. So you start recruiting these kids pretty young. You start identifying talents. The way it goes, and at least in our sport, is that you go out to all these soccer fields. There's thousands of kids out there. So you start to say, all right, I'm going to start gravitating towards the most successful teams. Because generally, at the further you get, remember when you're like U10, everybody played soccer. Everybody was like on the Pink Butterflies or the Panther, whatever. Well, everybody was on team. But
the Jawbreakers.
That's right.
Mega Sharks.
Mega Sharks. Do you remember your team name?
North Valley Rockers.
Ooh.
And Balboa Babes.
Ooh,
that was
Balboa
good. The
Babes,
Balboa
yes.
Babes, yeah.
Did Dad name that one?
No, I forgot who named that one. I forgot her name. Her name was Rebecca.
Dawn, was it?
No,
And they were
Dawn
painted
was,
on those
Dawn was one of
sheets
the
with the spray
parents.
paint. I remember.
It's brilliant. Everybody's
They were the
playing
best.
soccer. They were. So what happens is, everybody's a recreational soccer player.
Yeah.
But the further you go, then it starts to, narrow.
It funnels up.
It does. Same with in life,
Yeah,
acting.
of course,
Same thing.
of
You
course.
guys are here. You're at the
And
top
every
of your career.
weekend you're out there. And
That's right. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's really crazy. But we've had some wonderful experiences, when you go out of town, and Jesse would come, and Rachel was on the girls' team, and all the girls loved Jesse.
Of course they did.
And he loved.
They were like, hey, Jesse, do you want to come out with Rachel and her whole team to a hotel in San Bernardino for the next 2 days? I'm like, yeah, sounds like a good time to me.
It's a really hard decision. I don't know about that.
But it was fun. They'd play soccer during the day, and then we'd all dance and have fun, at night at the hotels and just watch movies. It was great.
It was a lot of fun, but there were some games that you never forget.
Oh, of course.
There was what was it? Tom Rothman, and Tom is
No, Tom Bangsness.
No.
no
Oh, really?
Tom Rothman.
Oh.
Tom Rothman is the chairman of Sony, who I work for, and tell him the story, Rachel, because this was something that was so memorable as I'm sure you have many stories
Yeah.
that are so memorable, where surprises come that you never expected. It's like, Cobra Kai. Do you ever expect the success of this show based on, movies in 1984 with the same actors? So there are some soccer experiences that were as stupendously remarkable and remembered. This is one of them. Tell them the story in Riverside.
Well, I don't know if I'll be able to do it justice, but I think we were losing 2-0, and I actually thrive under pressure. So when I feel like I'm losing, something activates in me. The warrior in me is like, oh, hell no.
That's right.
And so there's 2 minutes left, and
it's a tournament.
yeah.
It's a tournament.
It's a tournament. It was the semifinals. So if we lost, we weren't going to move forward. And that's when I get like, I'm in.
Go time.
Go time. Something just kicks off in me. And for some reason, under pressure, I thrive. And it was the last 90 seconds. And Nora was dribbling the ball.
Nora is Tom's daughter.
Tom's daughter. Nora, if you're listening to this, hello. I'll never forget this game. And Tom, if you're listening to this, hello. So it was 90 seconds, and I just was like, oh, we're going. And we charged the goal. She shot the goal in the left corner. I think it was a header. I think it was a header. And then it was like 9 seconds left, and I got the ball, and it wasn't even a thought. I just knew exactly where to go, and it was like, bam, we're in the left corner. Everyone's cheering and we're screaming, but now we're tied. And then it went into sudden death. And I got the ball.
Sudden death.
I got the ball.
Sorry.
I was at halfway field. I shot from halfway field, and I scored. We won the game. And everyone started charging the field. And it was just such a memorable moment. And I feel like, well, why is it so memorable? I feel like as humans, we want to fight for something.
Yeah.
And I think sports is one of the few things that we have left where we can all gather and in community. I mean, there's church, there's temple, and in sports, we can come together and fight for something.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Oh gosh, yeah. It's like transcendent. You have these,
Yeah.
right? That's the word. When you're telling the story, I think all of us have these moments where they're both iconic, transcendent. They take you places, and I don't know. I always say this is like I tell myself, a coach is someone that can take a player places they can't take themselves. Oh. But a team, there's something about doing life in community, right? And I'm a big fan of team sports only because, we have our core values at Pepperdine. We have core values that we live by. Humility is the first. If you don't humble yourself, life will. And we always say that humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's simply thinking of yourself less. And then sacrifice is
That's very good.
Yeah, right?
I like that.
Yeah, and then sacrifice, there is no greater love than to lay one's life down for another, right? And and then finally unity. I mean, come on. When you can be together with your brothers and sisters and you're all pulling in the same direction, we say one heart, one mind, one mission. It's a beautiful, beautiful
it's the best
thing, right?
Yeah.
So sport, doesn't matter if it's soccer, basketball, football. And then you have this group of fans that are living vicariously through you. You're like warriors that aren't dying out on the battlefield, but it's like you're hoping your army wins or whatever it is. And then there's something too, I know this is, again, very un-American, but there's something about a game well played that respect emerges, I think, where, look, I have no problem. I don't like to lose. I hate losing. But I have no problem if the team we play against is, they're warriors, and it's just a proper fight. I would imagine, like Cobra Kai, right? Again, I'm going back to last season, sort of epic on the mat, epic, really good fighting, and there's respect at the end of it. Win or lose aside, you're sort of like, all right, I don't know. I love the show. That's why I love that. It's some point you're like, oh, that wasn't fair. That wasn't right. But then you get on the mat and you're like, wait, at the end, to get out on the mat, I don't know. What is it?
MMA?
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Oh.
Dude, to get in the ring,
Yeah.
just to get in the ring is respect. Yeah. Whether you win or get your you-know-what handed to you. For me, so something about sport and about the pursuit of that excellence, competitive excellence, I think is an awesome thing. It's really fun to behold.
I'm motivated to want to go play sports right now. Something competitive.
You said something really interesting that you said, we were talking about this memorable moment of being on the soccer field and how these moments are the things that we remember throughout our lives. And it reminds me of the last scene in The Karate Kid. No matter what's happening, if that scene is on TV, I still get the chills. And it's not because you're my dad. It's because of what that scene means.
Right.
The underdog fights the bully. I mean, well, there's actually a debate and like what the truth is behind that and who the bully is. But it's so memorable. And it's like those scenes that you remember your whole life, the underdog winning. And that music, da-na-na,
Right.
da-na-na, da-na-na, ah! You know, I mean, I get the chills now.
Oh yeah, good. That was good.
Yeah, it was good,
really
right?
good.
Yeah.
I think it's emotional because what's emotional, I at silly sports scenes on TV, there could be some tragedy, and oftentimes I don't lose my cookies. But on a sports scene, I lose it, like a Super Bowl championship, because you know the time and the pain and the suffering and the perseverance required to get to that level. I don't know. I connect with that.
Same here. Well, I remember we were watching Cinderella Man in movie theaters. My dad and I, we went to see it, and it's that final moment where Russell Crowe is like thinking about his family before like losing, and it's like the way they did it was so beautiful you could just cry. And like literally the music's playing, the images of his family are going as he's getting these hits in the ring. And I remember my dad's watching, and he's literally like he's gritting his teeth, and he in the movie theater, it's quiet, and he punches his hands together. He's like, "Come on!" Like in the movie theater.
I remember doing
Do you remember that? It was so like it makes you it just gets you
visceral.
Yeah, exactly. It's so visceral.
And
it's fun because those moments, I'm a huge fan of like athleticism in life, right? Like and this is not making fun of other people, but like there are certain people that I value and respect in other ways, whether it's motivational speakers or whatever, different than others, because like someone like Jocko Willink, who's like been to war, and like when he talks about things that he's experienced, I like resonate with that a little bit more than maybe like, and this is just me, then maybe like, the person who's kind of, talking, in the middle of a garden or something like that. I resonate with a little bit more of a harder edged, motivational area. It doesn't mean that discounts the other, but that's just me. And everybody, as a coach, I feel like you have to kind of find how you can encompass all of that. Right.
Right. Finding motivational buttons to push.
Yeah.
Every kid has a different button, right? It's some kids, and all kids, and then you're getting into teaching styles. There's
soft, hard.
Yeah, right? Yeah. There's soft, hard. There's people are visual learners. They're auditory learners. They're kinesthetic. I mean, it's crazy. There's literally different learning styles. That kids have different smarts, right? And so you're trying to tap in and make the connection. You're just trying to move them in a way where they're like, oh, I get it. The light bulb just came on for me, right? But the motivational factor, yeah. If it's a movie, could be a song, could be could just be a note you stick in their locker. It could be, right? But the note for one kid might just light up their world, and another one's like, that's article, whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what the secret formula is, and that's why I think I love coaching, because once you have your team, then in my job, a quarter of my team graduates, the seniors graduate, and then you got to try again. You start all over, and you try to find the secret sauce again and again. Here I am, 29 years trying to do it again and again and again. So, yeah, it's sort of an addictive process. It's really fun, though.
Who coaches you?
My faith, yeah. I'm a Christian guy, and so I spent a lot of time not having grown up in the church, went away from the church, came back. Rachel and I had this long conversation about it, but I don't know. I find the pursuit of truth a really fascinating journey. My whole life, my faith doesn't really get nervous about the pursuit of truth. I love sitting down with people from all cultural backgrounds and just digging in. Life is, it really comes down to love your God and love your neighbor. I love.
Well, do you find that
true? Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
Do you find that the competitive pressures of athletes are somewhat minimized or softened by religion, by the kind of background you have, versus John Kreese coming out of Vietnam and saying, this is the way it's got to be. I don't care what the pressure is. We got to win, or else we're just going to keep on trying.
Right.
After I get rid of you. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Right.
So do you find that the pressures that athletes are under, which is enormous, especially in this day and age, how does that equate being part of a Christian?
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's a great question, because I think when I first became a Christian guy, I thought, well, you know what? I can't win because I'm so uber competitive. I might take someone's head off to do that. That wouldn't be very Jesus-like now of me, would it? So I thought that wouldn't be very good. But what I've come to find, and what I is that really God wants us to pursue excellence. Excellence. And excellence is not taking it easy on the other guy. That's actually, I think that's more disrespectful. You know, at some point in a game, if like, you know, the whole question, how far do you run a score up, right? Well, if you're on the losing team and a team runs the score up 6-0, somebody might say, oh, that's disrespectful. But if you're on the other team and the other team just starts not scoring intentionally, that feels disrespectful, I think. So you with me on that? So yeah, wrestling with a competitive faith thing, I think you try to do what's most loving, but that doesn't mean you can't be badass. That's bottom line. I mean, Jesus was badass. He went.
So you try to do
Absolutely.
you try to do what's most loving.
I do.
That's really hard. I mean, you're in a basketball game, and you're in a basketball game, and you know you're winning 40-20, 45-20, 50-20, and your team's pushing on. The stakes are high. I don't think you're going to have the team lighten up. Maybe in soccer it'll be a little different, but I don't know. Somehow,
Yeah, I don't think so. I
competitive,
wouldn't do that
the
either.
competitive spirit kicks in, and if you're on a high of scoring goals and hitting baskets, and you're on the field, then every kick you make is hooking right into the top part of the right part of the goal. I don't know how do you back up. How do you
No,
back up?
I don't. That's, I guess, maybe perhaps I didn't explain it, but I would never ask them to take these. But what you could do, so remember the U.S. women's national team. So one of our former players, Lynn Williams, plays for the U.S. women's national team. She's on there.
That's great.
Yeah, we got a bunch of girls in the pros. They're kicking butt. Super proud of
Amazing.
Pepperdine alum. They're awesome.
Yes.
But Lynn's on the U.S. women's national team. She played in the last Olympic Games, came in, right? But there was a game in the last World Cup. I think it was against Thailand or something where the U.S. ran up the score. And the next day in the paper, they're like, can you believe the U.S. women, you know, like running up the score? Like, it was like super lopsided. I don't know if it was 10 or something like that. And no, and that's what I'm saying is that it's
give me a
almost,
break.
yeah, it's almost more disrespectful to not play your best at that level. Right. So I guess this is the thing, right? You have to, if it's in a high school championship or a high school league, or if it's in a college, you're not taking it easy. Maybe you clear the bench. Maybe you're up by 30 points in a basketball game. Okay, maybe the most loving thing is keep going, but give the kid who never gets to play a shot to go out there and play. That could achieve both aims. You're still going to win the game, and you give some other kid. But now if it's like U8s, and all of a sudden you have Rachel and other 3-4 all-stars that are kicking you know what, and the other team's got no chance. And now you're at 10, and you're realizing that your crushing of the opponent at 8 years old this kid might never play soccer again. You're reading the room.
Yeah,
Also
I
reading the
understand.
room.
I understand. That is, I guess that's a consideration because of youth. But even when you play a baseball game,
Right.
you play a baseball game and it's 11-0, 13-0. They got to run, so it's 14-1. Nobody who's got 14 is laying back.
Right. Now
The guy is still trying to hit that.
His home run.
If he's trying to get a single if his base is loaded. He's trying to place the ball right to the left field behind the shortstop. I don't know where that, it's interesting because it's compassionate.
It is.
But I don't know where it comes from in this day and age. I don't know how do we, because everything is so competitive. Right. It's like in New York City, everybody looks down. Everybody's walking the streets looking down. Why? Because they're figuring out what their next move is in business or in life because there's so many people up for the same gig.
And avoiding gum.
But the bottom line is, you will see that. There's so many people in Manhattan as they walk. And what they're doing, I figured this out, is because their next move in business, because everything is so competitive in New York, because there are so many people doing the same thing creatively, whether you're an actor or whether you're in marketing. You've got to be different. You've got to be competitive. And nobody wants to deal with anybody around. They just want to walk through the streets thinking about, if I put this print out, it'll work. And I do it in color, it'll be great. So that's what happens. How did I get on that? I forget how I got on that.
Just competitiveness.
Competitiveness, yeah.
Competition.
Yeah.
And that's, just how far it's carried. It's carried by the fact that you got to walk from one building to another in concentration of your next move in life.
But I'm also grateful for that kind of competitiveness. Like, I mean, obviously, I've changed my mindset over the years when I was younger versus now. Like, you know, I'm an actor, so obviously I compete against thousands of other, you know, men and women mostly men for my parts. But it's like there's a part of me that's also grateful for that competitiveness because I know that there are people that are that fucking good that I have to work my ass off to be better than them. So it's like a beautiful give and take, you know. For me to know that there's these people that are willing to work so much harder than me makes me put a fire under my ass to work even harder than them. And I grew up in the business, you know. Not that I have a leg up or anything, but it makes me want to work even harder because if it was all just easy, then it wouldn't be as fun.
Agreed. Like you look in the soccer world, Cristiano Ronaldo and Leo Messi, for years they were contemporaries and they were pushing each other to new heights because they needed the other.
Right.
They needed, you know,
Yeah.
the villain, you know, John Kreese needs Daniel or whatever.
Misunderstood. I'm not a villain.
Right. I'm not saying that, but you got two. They need it. There's
The yin and the yang.
They do. They need each other to ascend to new heights. And that's, I think what's fascinating too, what we're stumbling on too when it comes back to mental health is that, okay, so the culture what I was thinking when we first spoke is that how you wrestle with resiliency. So what competition teaches you is resiliency. Dude, if you just don't get the first job you go and interview for or play the part for, then if you don't bounce, you're done. You're not going to make it in the industry.
Yeah.
Right? So what's fascinating, I think, about our current culture is that somewhere, and I'm with you on this, I don't know when. There's a song, I'm a Rush fan, but there's like someone made Surrender seem all right. There's a song in the past. It's on the album Presto. It's a great album for you Rush fans in the crowd. But somewhere somebody made Surrender seem all right. And what that meant is that my kid always gets a trophy. Remember the days when you come home from class and you were sucking, my parents were like, get your crap together. Like, get your stuff together. Now, I fast forward 20 years, maybe. Then it's like, oh, that teacher must suck. You're not doing well in your class, that teacher must suck. Or you didn't finish in first place, why doesn't my kid get a trophy? You know, there was something very powerful about me finishing second place, looking at the team that's on the podium, getting the first place trophies, and then longing for that and aspiring to that. And so I think,
in agreement with that.
Right?
So in agreement with
yeah,
that.
that competition is necessary. And we talked about, I know this is sort of a scientific thing, but the whole butterfly, the metamorphosis. And, you know, today's parent, not all, by the way, you still got some badass parents that are doing the right thing, but you have some parents, the ones that say, I want my butterfly to get a trophy, they would cut open the cocoon. Well, the science is very clear. If the butterfly doesn't struggle, then once it's out of the cocoon, it doesn't have the strength and the wings to fly.
Oh my God, that's
do you know what I'm saying?
Simple,
and it's
yeah.
pretty simple. So you have to build muscles of resilience. And how do you do it? You do it when they're in elementary school. Let them fall down. Let them break a wrist. Let them get a bloody nose. Let them get into a fight. So I'm with you on competition. Let them get their, kicked.
Experience some pain.
But in the safety of a home, ideally. In
Right.
an ideal where mom and dad can say, hey, it's all right, champ. Good job today. I'm glad you stuck up for yourself. Even though you got smashed in the eye 3 times, I'm proud of you. It takes a lot of courage. So now, it takes a lot of courage for a kid to do that, and it takes a loving family who's connected to their player to sort of frame that for them, right?
Exactly. And I think it's for parents out there who are listening, I think it's always looking for teaching opportunities with your children.
Yeah.
Always being in the present moment to be aware of how can this be a teaching opportunity for my child.
Right.
I remember I was with my son recently, and he was really scared to say goodnight to a friend of mine. And instead of me looking at him and saying, well, come on, just go say goodnight, I got down on my knees and I said, hey, bud, I can really tell that you're nervous right now. And that's okay because I get nervous too. And this is a really good opportunity to practice your fear. I actually said to him, no mercy to the fear.
He says all the time.
I love it. No mercy.
And then it took, and I look out for the opportunity for him to learn to struggle. There's an art to struggle.
Yes.
Learn to struggle and get okay in the struggle and not fall apart. And also sometimes there's an art to falling apart and then getting back together again.
Right.
And so I said to him, Jax, this is a great opportunity to practice being brave and to practice being courageous.
I love it.
And he was like fighting it, and he was like, oh, I don't want it. And he kept his head down. I didn't shame him. And I think that's where parents go wrong, is they try to shame the child for not accomplishing the goal like that. There's an art to learning, and there's an art to patience. And so then he finally did it, right? And it made me want to cry because he felt so happy in that moment that he said, good night. And it was that opportunity where he got to develop courage. And then I gave him a high five, and then repetition again. Like, do it over and over again, and then your brain develops that pattern.
Yeah.
And he got rewarded.
And he got rewarded. He got
She
the
called.
dopamine.
She FaceTimed me, and on the FaceTime, he says, "Mommy, now that I did that, what you wanted, can I have a toy tomorrow after school?" and she bought him one of his little dinosaurs. But I have a question that's very much related to this. Two questions. How do you deal with bullying as a coach, and how much of that exists? Because in my dojo, it's interesting how the bullying exists until he proves himself. The bully just gets on the mat, and that's, we've had examples of that many times in scenes in four seasons, where the underdog just develops himself somewhere along the line and comes back and kicks ass for the kid who bullied him 4 episodes ago. But in real soccer, in the real world, I played soccer. I was a goalie, and I played the German-Hungarian league, and I was going to make it a whole big deal of it. I don't remember a lot of bullying. And I was new to the team, but I don't remember anybody, and I was one of the few Americans. I don't remember a lot of bullying on the team. And in high school and college, I don't remember a lot of bullying either. So things might have changed now because of the level of competition. So explain to me, have you encountered that, and how do you deal with it?
That's a good question. At my level, to be honest, I don't see it a lot. I am attracting type A high achievers. I mean, some of the best players in the country. So what you are bringing in, at least at Pepperdine and some of the top schools in the top D1 schools, is you're bringing in kids that used to be in the best. So I think rather than bowling, they're all walking in with swag. They're all walking in with swag until they realize they're not the swaggiest of swaggers out there. Right? I guess I'm not sure.
that makes sense.
All
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a lot of other swag in the room.
That's right. So bowling it's funny because to bully at that level, at my level, it takes a lot of bull, right? It takes a lot of swag because everybody's that good, right?
Right.
And so you're right. Now, what's fascinating about soccer is that if someone is an ass and they're acting that way in soccer, you can hurt them permanently, intentionally with your studs. Just go above the ball, over their shin. I mean, that's brutal, right? That's old Tim. That's before I met Jesus Tim. You could really hurt, and that's why
John Kreese Tim?
Yeah, John Kreese Tim. I grew up with that. I'm a fan of John Kreese.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. And that's because that's how I grew up. And you have to have a little bit of the dark arts, they call it, in soccer, to protect yourself. If someone on the other team is getting disrespectful or out of whack, the game, humility is our core value because you can humble someone in our sport very, very quickly.
Check them.
With off-the-ball stuff, there's only 3 refs. It's a 120-yard by a 75-yard field. There's a lot of stuff that can go on without people seeing. Stepping on, breaking toes, there's a lot. There's just, it can get nasty.
I broke my collarbone.
Yeah, it can get nasty intentionally away from the ball.
And to all listening, we don't want you to go out there and break people's toes.
No. And so that's why to answer your question, I don't see a lot of it. Because I think anybody who plays at the highest level knows that they can be humbled very quick by a late challenge, a bad hit. And so it's almost like getting in the ring, right? You're getting in the ring, and that other person, if you're being an ass, can really, really hurt you, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer because I didn't encounter it. And for other reasons, because I was on a team that was losing all the time. And so we never could have differences with each other because we were always trying to win, and wherever we had differences, it was always the opponents. The other question I have is, how do you feel about? And I'm basically confused about this, and I have 2 different opinions. Participation trophies. Now you have first place, and then you have the participation trophies.
Not a fan.
I'm not a fan either.
I'm not either.
Not a fan.
But the question is here that Martin Cove thinks both ways. John Kreese, of course, is just first place. But myself, I've been throwing this around for months. When a kid is not really good at something but tries, and maybe his prowess is computers, maybe his prowess is painting on canvas, and he's 10, and he still tries to go out there and doesn't succeed very well on the field, and his team comes in second place. Does he deserve a participation trophy? Or even if his team comes in first place, does only the best athlete on the squad deserve the award? But in essence, usually you get a whole team will get a trophy. So in other words, does the participational trophy work for the second and third place team, even though they could be riddled with kids who are trying, who really want to be a good halfback, who really want to be a good center forward, but they just aren't coordinated?
That's fascinating.
So which way would you go? To give them that participation trophy, or only team number one?
Right, that's a good
Inspirational trophies. Trophies of inspiration.
Well, it can be inspirational. I mean, you give it to a kid. But
Perfect example. Jeff Bezos probably had some participation trophies growing up. Where he got his big trophy was sending his own rocket ship into space that he was on. That's where he won in his own way, right?
Yeah, that's funny. I think celebrating excellence, give the first place team, everybody on the team's playing a part, even if you're, But I think for that kid that finishes out of a league of 10 and they're on the 8th or 9th place team, I'm not giving them trophies, but at the banquet, a good coach would then say to the computer nerd, hey, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate your creativity and your way of doing data analytics for our team. Or so, you're giving them, you're basically knowing your players. So rather than fill them with lies, I mean, kids can read it. You can't kid what is it? You can't kid a kid. You can kid a kidder, but you can't kid a kid, right? So kids know. And so I think knowing your players and giving them authentic, celebrate who they are authentically, right? Rather than give them some trophy for being, hey, you're a great soccer player. Well, kids are going to see through that. They're going to know, no, I suck. Most kids know if they suck, I think. But the problem is parents tell them, parents fill them with lies, and they say, you're great. It's a dose of truth. Again, pursuit of truth is really, really important. And I think the truth is, hey, so you guys finished in 8th place, but you know what? You never gave up. And honestly, that's a huge achievement. You guys battled every game. You showed up. You're on time. You smiled. You worked hard. So you didn't win.
But that is an achievement in itself.
That's what I'm saying. So perseverance.
Right.
So you try to find a virtue. That's what I would do. You try to find a virtue that matches what that team has displayed. Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe it's they've got a great sense of humor, a great sense of community, and they never got disrespectful with one another. And you're like, man, it could have been easy to go south on each other here and just get down. But that's a really cool thing that you guys stayed positive.
So it's credit. You're actually creating credit.
Yeah.
And validation.
Yeah.
I think it's validating and encouraging their skills.
Right.
Instead of shaming them.
Right.
And it leads me to, I have 2 questions that I don't want to forget.
Okay.
One of them being, how do you, I guess you just kind of answered it, but I was curious if you have a player that's not doing well. Because I've had verbally abusive coaches where the parents had to hold themselves back because we've had coaches that would yell so hard that I just would freeze and I would shut down as a player, and I just didn't even want to play it in some games because I was like, why would I play? Right? How do you give constructive feedback to a player when their expectations are so high and they want to win more than you do, right?
Right.
How do you do that?
Again, old Tim and new Tim. Old Tim, again, super passionate. I mean, youngest of 6, just single mom raising me, fighting for everything. So that passion when I got into coaching was like, come on, that's all you got. You got to fight. That's what I'm saying. I've been doing it long enough to be self-aware of what I was and how I was and now how I am. What I appreciate now, or what I try to do now, is that you try to find out prior to the heat what this kid responds to. So for instance, say I'm working with you and you've told me in an office, hey man, how do you like to be motivated? You want public feedback, or is it private? Because I'll give it to you. I'm here. I would say feedback is neither positive or negative.
I love constructive criticism.
Right.
It helps me. I don't care where you say it, because whatever you're telling me, it's going to freaking help me.
That's right.
That's how I see
That's it. Feedback, right? If you're walking in the street, I always use it's a graphic example, but if your kid is walking out in the middle of a bus, you're not going to say, oh, Johnny, stop playing in the middle of the street. You're like, get out of the street right now. And you're passionate about it, and that has to be immediate, loud, abrupt, whatever. Might hurt that kid's feeling, but you just saved their life. Same with feedback sometimes. Same with feedback in the game. they might be doing something that jeopardizes the team and the team's result and the team's dream and the team's journey. So sometimes the feedback has to be public, it has to be harsh, and it has to be transparent so everybody understands. But you can do that on the front end. So you can tell your team on the front end, hey, I'm giving you feedback. Sometimes it comes across as cuddly and lovely. Hey, you're great, you're great. Sometimes it might come across as harsh. But you have to do it publicly so that if I have a coaching point for you, that I don't have to continually make the same coaching point to 5 different players throughout the year. You say, do you have to get hit by a bus? I mean, if your friend gets hit by a bus or your kid, do you have to get hit by a bus to learn the same
Accountability.
lesson? That's right. And so those lessons sometimes with feedback. And again, I think feedback is a great word because criticism feels negative just by the assumptions we put into that word. Criticize. It immediately goes negative. Constructive criticism, positive into negative, right? But I'm like feedback. It's not negative. It's just information. Now, how better coaches, I think, deliver the feedback in a way that can be received, right? So the great teachers give people truth serum. They give them the truth. They give them feedback. But the way you deliver that message, I think the best teachers connect, and you have to connect with different people in different ways. Sometimes that might be harsh with you. It might be in the middle with you, and it might be privately with you. Hey, Rach, and I did that today. I had a kid that was beating herself up in training, beating herself up. So I didn't want to, I knew she was already not in a good place. So I walked over to her, put my arm around her, said, love you, kid. You're doing great. Relax. Take a breath. Just take a breath.
That's nice.
But somebody else, hey, play that ball quicker. Come on. You eliminate
the criticism and you substitute it with feedback.
Agreed.
But it's the same information.
That's right.
Right.
So it's the tone. It's like hear the message, not the tone.
Tone. Important tone.
Well, tone for sure. I mean,
right.
See, it's interesting on the show. I want them to write more of that, where I can give a criticism, rather I can give a feedback, and not be criticizing. John is always criticizing because he doesn't have time to be compassionate.
Right.
I want more of those moments to be compassionate, which our writers are going to be here tomorrow. And some of the things we've discussed, because John Kreese is not written like you are. In other words, he doesn't have those tools. He's pretty much just hardcore, do it my way because I have moral fiber and I know and I'm a champion and blah, blah. It's hard and cold.
Right.
These things we've been discussing today are wonderful manipulations of how to achieve the same goal as he does.
But it's not manipulations. They're tools, right?
Yeah, toolbox. Yeah. I like that. I like the tools. Either way, I understand what you're saying.
You manipulate the tool.
Yeah.
To make
handle
for
it.
an
Yeah.
exam,
Yeah.
for a outcome. But what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be fascinating, artistically, to have these qualities and still be walking the tightrope?
Yeah, I'm with you.
As we've seen in 4 Seasons, So it's something really that I bring up. It's kind of hard to write if the show is not about you.
Right.
But
I love your character, though. I got to be honest. The character that I see is I see a hard ass. I see old school in that you're me and you're sort of my generation and how we grow. But you can also see your heart, right? I don't know if it was. I don't want to get this wrong, but remember the scene with the apple? And there's this
in the market.
In the market.
The apple?
Oh yeah, with Amanda.
I know, and it was great. And it was great. The apple scene was one of my favorites because it gave a glimpse that hey, the guy's got a heart.
See.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I bit the apple, and I think I said, "Oh, these are delicious."
That's right. Yeah.
And then I walked off.
That's it. But no, it was sort of truth. You were given truth, and it wasn't all. It was sort of an honest conversation. Mm-hmm. So honesty doesn't. I think you're an honest character, and again, you're sort of the character in the show is a product of your time. My dad was a Korean War vet; he passed away, but I get it. Not in the war, but I get it. I get what he brought back.
Well, thank him.
Yeah, right. Veterans, man, come on. So, but I get that, and so there's a different way. Back then, people didn't talk about it. They just didn't talk about it.
Right, and they didn't talk about it because they came from the silent generation.
That's right.
So there's the silent generation, there's the baby boomer generation, and the baby boomer generation is the product of the silent generation where they didn't talk about anything.
Right.
So now we're finally in a generation where we're allowed to talk about feelings, and that actually leads me into what I wanted to talk to you about is how do we bring vulnerability and mental health and I just feel like and I know this for myself. I played competitively till I was semi-pro, and then I stopped. And I wish I had emotional life skills. I wish I had the discipline at that time, and I didn't. And I didn't have the life skills I needed. How do you think we can create more of that? Because I feel like athletes are playing at such a highly competitive level, the pressure they feel to succeed, they develop such perfectionism. What do you think about that?
Well, what you guys are doing here is brilliant. I mean, it's just continuing the conversation and awareness. I mean, when we were kids, did you ever hear emotional IQ? Did you ever even hear that phrase, emotional or social IQ? No. I never heard of it either. You know, I have no idea. You were who you were, and you walk in a room, you sort of get the lay of the land, sort of read the room, read people on the street, sort of walk that way. If someone looked like it was going to be a dark alley, you know, you're like, I'm going to hang right down here. But now there's this idea of emotional IQ, and not only is it reading the room, but it's being self-aware, and that self-awareness is a huge one. I think it bugs me. I don't know if this is going to come out right, but like, okay, we had a player at Pepperdine years ago. Her brother was shot in the Columbine shooting, the high school shooting, but he survived.
Oh my God!
But prior to the Columbine high school shooting, how many high school shootings were there? That was like the first. And then what happens? You have more. There's all of a sudden people are like, hey, that's an interesting idea. And then there's this with mental health right now. It seems to be, you guys, the numbers are staggering that we're seeing. We're at the college level, we are seeing more kids needing counseling than ever before. So the good news about that is kids are seeking help. Okay, that's good. The good news is there's more and more conversations happening. But the big question is it just because these kids are weaker? I don't think so. But I do think they face pressures that we never face. Like, I'll give you a stupid example, but I always look at my son like, I don't know how many boys have gone up to a girl gone up and just asked them out on a date face to face. See, back in the old day, you would do that, and someone would say, sorry, you know, I did that. I got rejected all the time. You know, I'm like, you go up in high school and, hey, you want to go to dance? Oh, sorry, Marty. Someone already asked me. Now, you walk away back in the 80s when I did that. There was nobody going to tweet or Snapchat it. Now, in 5 minutes, the whole school knows. That wasn't happening then. Mm-hmm. And so you were guarded. Even though it was a failure, it wasn't fatal. It felt like you could recover from that, even though it hurt. You know, you wake up the next day, all right, new day. All right, I'm going to ask somebody else, something like that. Yeah, but nowadays, right? Nowadays, if you're not perfect, you see, if you don't want to misstep, because that's where that bullying, when you talked about bullying, cyberbullying, or what the pressures of being liked or posting just the right thing or having just the right image, I think what they're dealing with this social media, I just think it's a different thing that I'm not really well equipped to deal with. And that's why I think I have to evolve as a coach, because I'm seeing a different student athlete these days. They're brilliant, by the way. Our kids are way more in tune with the world and social causes and information. I mean, you don't need to be a teacher because they can look everything up right there, you know. Right. They can, but they're stronger in so many ways than I ever was. Way more self-aware, way more accepting, you know. But then there's this other side of it that they might be more, I don't know, I don't think it's weakness. I don't think that's the right word. I just think it's, they've been guarding them, their true selves. Weirdly, they're trying to, you know, everybody's celebrating, be your authentic self. But if you're your authentic self and it's not appreciated, then what?
Yeah, I feel like life experience is a huge part of that, right, and away from that, you know. And one of the things, because we have to wrap up here in a minute, but one of the things I feel like I'm taking away from what you're saying, one, I'd love to bring it back, my God, this is awesome, is the pursuit of truth. Right. Like you're saying, especially even in life, athleticism and in life, because the truth hurts, and being competitive hurts, and winning and losing hurts. Mm-hmm. And it's like you said, like, you know, when you lose, it hurts, but then you get back up in that strength, like the butterfly, to come back again and to win. And then if you win that next time, you freaking earn that win. And it's like, you know, I saw this thing a week ago where I forgot his name. He won the wrestling state championship. He had no legs and he didn't have all his fingers on his left arm. When I saw the video of him winning and he hugged his coach, I literally cried, because I could imagine how much internal strength it took for him to do that and to win and beat someone who has all of their arms and legs. I mean, it was unbelievable, you know, and it's that kind of stuff. You know, he deserved that. He won, whether he had all his legs or not. He put in the work and he did that. And there's, like, you know, there's the truth to all that. So I want to thank you for being someone who a beacon of truth for kids, for people, and for all of your athletes.
Yeah, this has been an honor. The reality is life's hard. I don't know who said it wasn't, but it's hard. It can be dark. It can be dark, but it also can be light. It can be ugly, but it can be beautiful. It can be filled with despair, but it can also be full of hope. And again, that takes me back to sort of my faith. It can feel unloving at times, but man, to know that you're unconditionally loved always, that when you're up at night and you're wondering, how do I do this? For me, I'm looking upstairs and I'm like, all right, God, you got this. I trust you. I trust your plan. Your ways are higher than my ways. So I look back on my life, and we can probably each look back on all those crazy things that we thought were so tragic and so hard. And by the way, they were. But we always say failure, like when you fell down, but then it turned into fertilizer. Failure is fertilizer. It helps you grow.
No, it's like the relationship. Jesse and I have been going through, he's been chatting with me about relationships. And when you make mistakes in a relationship, you walk away with a great deal of knowledge. And if you pick it up a year later or 6 months later or 2 months later, you are much the wiser.
Agreed.
You just are. And
Henry Ford, failure is the opportunity to begin again more intelligently.
I like it.
It's one of my favorite quotes.
I love that. I love Viktor Frankl. The last of human freedoms is one's ability to choose their attitude in a given set of circumstances.
Oh, I love it.
Literally one of my favorite books.
Man's Search for Meaning. It's like powerful, especially because it's, survivor of the Holocaust. But
Absolutely.
heavy
Tim,
stuff.
You're amazing. Thank you. I feel like at the end of the day, whoever's listening, it's
No, we
either you
can't
want
let
us
him go.
I know we got to wrap up.
we're
Our
gonna
producers
tie him
are
up, put
shooting
him
arrows
underneath
in my
it.
back here. At the end of the day, for people listening, I guess it's: do you want to step into the game and play the game, or do you want to be on the sidelines watching? It's painful, but it's worth it.
It is. It's a beautiful thing.
Tim, how can people follow you? How can people? Do you have a? Are you on social media?
No, I'm surfing. I'm surfing in Malibu somewhere. Usually, I try to stay off the social media.
You have a great voice.
I think I have a Twitter. I think I'm at Head Coach Ward something or other.
I tried finding you and I couldn't
I
find
know.
you.
I'm sort of old
Mystery
school.
man.
I'm low key. I'm mystery man. But
Well, we'll get you back on here. We
Just
thank
leave
you
us
so much.
notes,
I
like
will,
little
I
pieces
will,
of paper where you'll be and all that.
We really want to thank you for being here.
It's my
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank everyone for listening. Again, it's Kicking It with the Koves. I'm Jesse Kove, my dad Martin Kove, my sister Rachel Kove. Please continue to leave us awesome reviews if you enjoy the show, and leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. It really helps us so much, so thank you so much. And we will see you next week.